All right, welcome back to another episode of Nemo Radio. I knew the moment I heard the name of this gentleman's business, I had to get him on because I'm hungry already thinking about Bruce Irving and smart pizza marketing, baby. Oh my gosh, I love pizza. Bruce, I can eat it 3 times a day. First, before I bring you on though, Bruce is a real marketing visionary. He's the guy behind smartpizzamarketing.com. He hosts a weekly Smart Pizza Marketing podcast where he interviews kind of some of the top performers and leading minds of the pizza restaurant industry. He's also does a lot of marketing consulting. He's got an incredible backstory growing a local business. And at the time of this recording, the audio and the video too, we're in the middle of this whole coronavirus pandemic. So I want to get into the restaurant industry and how that's impacted things and Bruce's whole story. So with all that said, my friend, welcome to the show.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time and having me as a guest on your podcast. I'm super pumped to be here.
Dude, I just wish you could be here in person and give me some pizza. So let's start with the most important thing. What's your go-to pizza?
Right now, Detroit-style pizza. So Detroit-style pizza, for anybody who's not familiar, is more of it's done in a steel pan, cooked. The dough is a little bit lighter, thicker, cheese caramelized on the edge of the crust. Right now, I'm fascinated with Detroit-style pizza. That's my go-to pizza.
I just feel like Homer Simpson where he's drooling right now. I got to get back on track here. All right, so take us through your journey because it's an incredible story. I met you at Social Media Marketing World. You were there speaking. We met in the speaker's room. But for people that don't know you and don't know about Smart Pizza Marketing, what's kind of your backstory? What's the professional journey?
So it started for me as a pizzeria operator. Me and my brother-in-law operated a local pizzeria joint. We had about 20 seats, but we were doing a pretty good sized volume for the amount of seats that we had. We were always looking for ways to innovate and grow. And we didn't go to college for business. We kind of just grew up in the business world, actually operating businesses. That's how we learned. So when it came to expanding our restaurants, we wanted to open more locations. And when it came to doing that, we didn't really necessarily know how to do that. We learned by doing. And for me, the whole podcast and this whole marketing company started by me wanting to reach out to people to see and talk to them about how they're growing their businesses. So it started for me reaching out. I'm saying, I'm going to start a podcast. Podcast is a great way to talk to people, network. And the difference between starting a podcast and then just randomly emailing somebody and saying, hey, can I talk to you for 30 minutes is you have a platform. So I wanted to reach out to folks in the pizza community and say, hey, come on my podcast. But ultimately, the goal for me was just to pick their brain for 30 or 45 minutes and learn how they're marketing their business. So that's kind of how my marketing journey began. Starting the podcast, reaching out to people, asking them questions, being curious. And then I realized that I really enjoyed doing the podcast more and more. And it just has grown from there. We've been doing this podcast that we have for 6 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. We've interviewed 300 people, and I never thought that we would get it to be after 50 episodes. I'm like, there's no way we're going to be able to do 50 episodes talking about pizza. But here we are 300 episodes later, and we're still going.
We can never talk enough pizza, man. So so you start out running your own pizza joint. You're curious, you're smart because you want to learn from people that are already doing it, having success. What are kind of some of the key things that you would share with anyone else? It doesn't have to be a restaurant business, a physical business necessarily, but what are the key building blocks that you've learned to kind of creating and running your own business? What are the things that if someone says to you, hey, Bruce, I want to start my own thing. I want to leave corporate life. I want to, try to create this idea and turn it into a business model. What's your advice? What do you tell people who want to do that?
I mean, you're in luck. In 2020, it's a lot easier to get information than it was when I first started back in 1999, So you're in luck. The information is readily available. The number one thing I see when it comes to people running businesses today is they surround themselves with really smart people who do things that they're not particularly good at. If you have a partner or if you have people on your team, you want to make sure that what they're strong at, you're weak at, and what you're strong at, they are weak at. And I don't mean weak in a bad way, but I mean weak in a sense that your strengths are different than theirs. The thing about my brother-in-law is we butted heads a lot because we were both the same type of individual. And for me, surrounding yourself with the right people and getting that team in place is probably the number one thing if you want to grow a business or start a business in any sense. And then learning as much as you can, listening to podcasts, reading books, going to networking events, networking online. If you can't get to places like now, like, we're doing all of these things online because we're not allowed to go anywhere. So just really building that network and reaching out to people for me is one of the most important things you can do before you even get started in a business.
What about mindset? Like, how this is one of the core things that so many people I talk to, coaches, consultants, small business owners, really struggle with failure, struggle with setbacks, struggle with, yes, it's easy to get information, but it's hard to pick yourself up and implement it. How did you develop your mindset to overcome setbacks and adversity? What do you do? How do you get yourself kind of to game on and make things happen?
You got to look at your end goal. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Whatever it is in your business, in your life, with health, with fitness, whatever it is, what's the end goal? And that end goal, you have to want much more than you care about what anybody says about you or the obstacles you're going to have to overcome, because they're always going to have obstacles. And especially for us, we do a lot of marketing with local businesses, and they're always, we try to push them towards video. And I always get pushback from local business owners. Oh, I don't want to do video, or I'm not comfortable on video. Or one time I did a video and someone said something on a comment that made me feel bad. And I'm like, who gives a crap? Like, you have to continue to do those things, whether you are motivated, you feel like it, or whatever it is going on. You need to have the end goal in mind and realize that that's more important to me to get to that end goal than anything else that is going to happen to me along the way. And you're going to have peaks and valleys. It's just part of the journey.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. One thing I want to ask you about, because of your expertise, if someone has a local business, what's your best advice right now to someone, whether it's, pizza, fast casual, where you play a lot, or just a different, approach, different type of business? What's your best advice for growing and, really having a successful local business?
I'd say, product aside, the number one thing is have a good product or a good
Sure.
service and be good at what you do. I'm going to assume that anybody who is asking that question has that straight. Your product is great. Your service is great. No matter how many people come to you, they're going to be happy. The next thing is, I really feel like we live in a different time, and we live in a different time when people want to know who they're doing business with. And the older generation of folks used to go by coupons and discounts. And the younger generation of folks kind of want to know what the business is all about. What do you stand for? Where do you source your products from? How do I know I can trust you? How do I know you're going to deliver on what you promised me? And so in order to do that, you need to get out there as the business owner and put yourself out there and talk about your values, talk about how you get your products made, how you treat your team, and push that message constantly on platforms like LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, if that's your thing. And really show up every single day, especially now, the time we're recording this podcast. The number one message you need to do is show up every single day and show your community or your customers that you're still here, you're relevant, and you're here for the community when we go through these hard times like we're going through now.
Yeah, I love this. And I've heard, I'm a fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's going nuts. Like, he's online every day, 2 hours live, like you can't,
yeah, it's crazy.
You can't turn on your computer and not see that guy. But one of the things he's been talking about that you alluded to is telling your story, right? Isn't that critical, that we want to do business with people we know? Yeah. And how do you, yes, the product and service has to be good, but how does a local business owner do that? Is it creating video? Is it creating podcasts? Not just because you see so many local businesses struggle with just blatant ads, right? Just like, totally. Come buy our stuff. Like, how do you coach them to get people to like you and have an affinity for you, but without being kind of sleazy or spammy?
That's tough. It's tough to do that, right? It's not necessarily, a lot of business owners nowadays, that's not necessarily the first thing that they think of doing when they think of promoting or marketing their business. They don't think of putting myself out there and talking to the community as a human being. They think of, all right, I got to get more products sold, or I got to increase my sales. But for me, I think you do that over time. And you do that over time by, I always tell people when they get started with marketing or to get started with video, is write down those 15 to 30 questions that you get asked over and over and over again. Every business has those. Marcus Sheridan was just on our podcast not too long ago, where he talked about, they ask, you answer. Write down those questions, right? And make create content, whether that be in audio, written form, or video, and answer those questions. And then do that over and over and over and over again. And once you start doing that, once you get to 10, 15, number 10 or 15 of those questions, you're going to start to think of more. And you're always going to think that I'm never going to be able to think of 30 questions. But then once you start writing them down, 10 becomes 12, 12 becomes 20, 20 becomes 30, and you can still keep rolling. So start there. Write down all of the questions people ask you, or comments, or any insights that you have in your business, and start producing content based on those and get started there. And then you'll see from there, you'll start rolling.
Yeah, I think it's critical for local businesses to put yourself out there, share who you are, real life, like, so people have an affinity and get to know, like, and trust you. Here I am with my dog, whatever it is. Yeah. But then also educate, be creative and innovate. And I love, there's a great book by a guy named Chet Holmes called The Ultimate Sales Machine. And he says, whoever educates the most wins. Yeah. Right. Whoever educates the most wins. And so being creative for your audience, saying, hey, here's some ways. This is a great example I'll just share. I just signed on a client who actually is in the Boston area. It's called the Paint Bar. And they normally do live events where you come and paint and you bring in your team, and it's a fun thing, and you sip wine and it's bonding. And she's pivoting to, well, we can't do it live in person given current environment. So let's do it online with Zoom. And we'll pitch it to the companies as, hey, your team is scattered. They're stuck at home. They need some bonding beyond the normal corporate, Zoom calls. Let's put on a live online event. We'll ship them the supplies. We'll ship them the painting, the canvas. We'll set up like a virtual happy hour. They'll all be together. And so, like, these are the kind of things where you can still pivot as a business and be successful and educate, but it's also helping other people see creative ideas that you have. So 100%. What does your business look like today? Like, what do you spend most of your day doing?
So for me, we spend a lot of days creating content. Since this whole thing started, we're going live every morning on Facebook as well. Just updating our community, sharing some information for them, relevant news, and things are happening quickly now. So we want to get that to them as fast as possible. So we spend a lot of time creating content. We literally just recently put on a virtual summit 3 days ago as we were recording this, where we had guest speakers come on and share some information in our community. And then working with our clients, like right now is a pivotal time for local businesses. There's a lot that aren't operating because they just aren't essential businesses and they're not able to. And then there's a lot who are considered essential businesses, and they're trying to figure out how to pivot and adapt in a world that changes pretty much on a daily basis. We're talking to a lot of business owners who have been in business for 10 or 15 years, and we meet with them daily. And it's literally like they're starting their business from scratch right now on day one, even though they've been open for 10 years, because the world is just changing so quick. So that's kind of how we spend most of our day, is just marketing our company, in helping our clients and audience pivot through this crazy world we're in right now.
Yeah. What have you seen, or what are you advising that you've really been like, that's a great idea? Like, are there any examples that jump to the top of your mind of somebody doing a really creative pivot from they were stuck doing this and now they're doing this and it's really working, or something you see that you're advising a client? I'm just curious what you're seeing out there that people are doing to work and reinvent.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things in business that you've always thought about doing, and maybe you've wanted to change something in your business. Let's take a restaurant that wanted to get into more online ordering or takeout and delivery. And you've been a sit down restaurant and you just never really had the time or energy to change, or you were afraid to change, or you thought maybe your customers wouldn't want to take out a delivery from you. Now they're being forced to do that, right? You're really being forced to move to digital. If you are in a restaurant or a takeout service style restaurant, customers are afraid, right? Like, they don't want to come in and hand you money. They don't want to talk to you. They want that plexiglass up. They want to do everything online. So if you've always been that old school operator where you didn't want to have online, I like talking to my customers in person. Like, that's great for you, but your customers don't want to do that right now. So they're forced to pivot. You need to get technology involved. You need to start using social media to get your message out there, because that's how people are spending their time. You need to have an easy way for people to order from you. You need to make it so easy that an old person on an iPhone can order from you nowadays. And we've seen a lot of businesses do that, go from, really hardcore, we're not doing any of that digital stuff, to, oh crap, we have to do that digital stuff because there's no choice for us anymore.
I love that. It's like the grandpa analogy. Like, if my mom can't figure out how to order food from you, like,
Yeah.
you're dead. You're dead. And it's adapt or die. And it's, what do you advise people that are fearful, that are like, because I think people go one of two ways: is either they go into the fetal position and hope and hope they get bailed out, or they attack. Like, how do you get people off that sideline, especially clients that come to you with freaking out?
Yeah, you got to just stay focused on what you need to do. There's no time right now to put your head in the fetal position and die. If you want to do that, you're going to die. You shouldn't be a business owner if that's your first mentality, is like, if something bad happens, if you want to own your own business, or you do own your own business, if you're the type of personality, when one thing bad happens, you want to curl up in a ball and cry, you should not be a business owner, because that literally happens every single day. There's not a day that goes by in our business where we don't have 3 good things happen and 4 bad things happen. Right. And that's just how business is. Like, there's no every day is glorious and fantastic. There's always bad things that happen. And you need to be able to deal with that. And the best business owners that I see are able to pivot and adapt and think on the fly. Like, book smarts doesn't always get you to be a great business owner. It's sometimes those street smarts that are like, all right, this happened. Now we have 2 options. We can continue to do the thing that's not working, or we can pivot and ask our team and try to figure out how we're going to solve this problem. And that's what you need to do. You need to just be okay with the fact that things are going to go bad, but your team should be in place. You should have good communication with them, and you should be able to problem solve quickly in order to maneuver through this crazy time we're in.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, this is great stuff. So let's pivot to another question. How did you build? You have a really nice platform. I mean, you've been featured a lot of places. You spoke at Social Media Marketing World. People are always asking, how do you get that? How did Pizza Guy get to speak at Social Media Marketing World? So take us through that. Like, how did you get this platform? How did you get these opportunities? People want to know kind of how to build that.
I think you have to start with something that you enjoy doing. A lot of people want to start a podcast or start doing YouTube videos or start creating content, and they don't really know where they can start. Or maybe they think they need to start doing something that they need to learn. And I started with pizza. And the reason I started with pizza is because that's where I grew up. I grew up in the pizza industry. Like, been working there since I was 14 years old. And I knew that. And I was curious about that industry and how those other operators started. So start with what you're curious about, however big or small that is. And think of those people who you can talk to or network with, and how you can add value to those people who are doing that. And don't pretend to be something that you're not. Don't pretend to be an expert if you're not an expert. Don't pretend to be someone who can help somebody with something if you can't actually help them do that, if you haven't had results. It's okay to start and be new and tell people, hey, listen, I'm new at this. I'm going to do this podcast about iPhones, and I've never done podcasts about iPhones before. Do you mind coming on my podcast and talking about that with me for 30 minutes? And some people will do it, and then do that consistently over time. And then over time, you'll get noticed if you're good at it, and you'll get better at it as you go. And then you'll start to get exposure, and then you'll start to know, okay, which direction should I go now? So for me, getting featured in social media on Michael Stelzner's podcast, or getting asked to speak at Social Media Marketing World, wasn't something I set out to do. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to create a podcast for me initially, and then it started to grow an audience, and then that audience started to tell me which direction they wanted it to go in, and I listened to them, and it just built over time. And then over time, networking with the right people, having the certain people on my podcast that knew other people and suggested them, that's just how it grew.
Yeah, old school, just kind of, being a people person, hustling, coming up with ideas, taking notes on who can introduce you to who. Yeah, I mean, this is how the world works, even in a digital landscape.
100%.
So what's your best advice for someone that says, okay, Bruce, I get it. I'm stuck online. I have to sell online now. I can't go meet people and have coffee. What's your advice? What steps do you teach people to sell their product or service online?
You have to adapt your product and service to be sold online, first of all. Like, adapt it. If it's not something that can be sold online, figure out how you can do that. And then I think you need to create content every single day. You can't leave your house. We're inside. You're in your office, and it doesn't matter. Nowadays, you watch TV now, and you see the news people doing the news from their house on TV. So that authenticity, if it comes across on TV and the times we're in, it comes across on Facebook or on Instagram or on LinkedIn. And create content that you think those people who are interested or would be interested in your product care about, and continue to do that every single day. And then, it's the whole 80-20 principle, right? 80% of the time, be authentic and helpful, and 20% of the time, sell your product or service. And that's just showing up every day is just how you do that.
Yeah, and I think, Bruce, you hit on a key point, which I've learned running an online business since 2012, which is your content that you create is your currency. That's what you use to buy people's time and attention. That's what you use to buy their interest and their trust, and and being authentic and being transparent, and not just being salesy and spammy, but actually bringing value. That's the big thing I try to teach people around LinkedIn is there's so many people, like you said, that are just claiming authority online, right? I'm the guru, I'm the ninja, instead of actually demonstrating it. I'll actually put out content on a regular basis that will help you solve your problems, or that will inspire you or entertain you or educate you. You're going to keep coming back to listen to that person, because right now, every single person in the world has basically a broadcast studio in their home. It's called an iPhone, right? Like, you can create and put out a video, audio, you can do text, you can do photos. So the opportunity's never been easier, but also you have to stand out. Like, there's so many options. So what's your advice for someone that says, okay, Bruce, I get it, I need to put out content. What's your advice for creating great content that will attract your audience?
I think you need to create content and just start. There's no content that you're going to get started with that's going to be great in the beginning. We've put out 300 audio podcasts in the last 5 years. And if you go back and listen to the first 20, they're completely awful. But if you don't get to 20, you're not going to know what's good and what's bad. If you just do one podcast, you're going to think it's great. I think somebody said one time, if you go back, say you've created 100 podcasts and you got to episode 100, if you go back and listen to number 1 and you're like, that was awesome, you waited way too long to get started. And there was probably 100 podcasts that you didn't put out that were just okay. So you just need to get started. I think too many people worry about what other people think about their podcast, and they try to please everyone versus just trying to do the content that maybe you would want to hear if you were going to be that consumer. And then as you grow and your audience grows, they'll tell you what they want to hear. And then you can either do that or you don't do that. But you got to just get started. You're never going to be great at anything in the beginning. You don't need a lot. You need a microphone. You can use your iPhone. Your camera on your iPhone that you have in your pocket is much better than any camera we had when I first started out. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, 99, good Lord. You're taking us back, baby. Yeah. I mean, you're shooting in HD now, and the mics are so good and everything. And I want to ask you one more question before we kind of bring this in for landing. With you're somebody that's studied a lot of people. You've asked a lot of questions. You've sought out successful people to learn from. What are kind of the common characteristics or the common traits that you see again and again and again in the most successful people you encounter?
That's a great question. The most successful people that I see that are business owners, that have multi-unit business owners, are great at finding and building a great team. The one thing about the restaurant industry that I see a lot is there's 2 categories. There's people who figured it out, and then there's people who complain about not being able to figure it out. And the people who complain about not being able to figure out are so hard-headed, they don't look at the people who have figured it out and emulate them versus just complaining about it. And you could either do 2 of the people who you see have 10 restaurants, they don't have any secret formula. There's no secret formula to finding people, right? They have the same formula you have. They talk to a lot of people. They ask a lot of the right questions. They find people who may not have the knowledge skill-wise, but they have good attitudes, and they hire those people. They learn about those people, and they put those people in the right place for those people to succeed, which then helps your business to succeed. So the people that I've seen the best at business aren't the best marketers, aren't the best on video, aren't the best on audio. They're the people who can find people, attract the right people to help build their business, and then put them in a spot where that person is going to succeed and thrive in their business, and then be helpful to their business grow over time. That's the number one key. Like, marketing is just secondary. I think being able to build your team is the most important skill any business owner can have. Unless you are solely content on being a solopreneur for the rest of your life, if you're looking to build a business that needs people, being able to locate those people and put them in the right spot is super valuable.
Yeah. This is great stuff. And I mean, I think that you have to understand what you want to be and what your end goal is, to go back to what you said before, and know that, and be like, you have a sign behind you and people listening won't see it, but it says stay humble, be kind, and work hard. Like, there it is, man. Right there. Like, humble being like, I don't have all the answers. I'm going to go ask people and find people smarter than me. Being kind for networking and helping others, and working hard, putting in the grind. Like, a lot of people don't want to do that, but because you love what you're doing, so it's not work. You're enjoying it, man. Right?
Yeah. There's no secret formula. I feel like people want a secret formula to whatever it is. What's the secret formula to building a podcast? What's the secret formula to growing a Facebook page or an Instagram account? Like, there is no secret formula. There is no video that's going to do it for you. You need to do the work, and you need to do it consistently over time. And that is the secret formula. Because there's a lot of other podcasts that started to talk about pizza after we started, and a lot of them aren't going right now. And the only reason we still are is because we were consistent over time and put in the work. And that's the secret formula.
Yeah, I'll never forget this, because there's so many online gurus that are saying they have a secret formula, right? Yeah. I mean, you can't open up Facebook without some guy in front of a Lamborghini telling you how easy it is to make money online. and I, one of the things, like, I love doing online courses. And so I found the most successful online course guy that I really resonate with. And I actually hired him, paid quite a bit of money for a coaching call. And you know what he said to me, Bruce? He goes, I'm just going to tell you right now, he starts the call, he goes, there is no secret formula. There is no magic bullet. He goes, marketing's marketing. This is this. This is this. Can I show you a few things? Sure. But that's not you're not going to make $1 million just from some secret magic bullet.
Right.
Like, it was actually very comforting, because it just reassured me I am doing the right things. Just keep doing more of what I'm doing it better, smarter. But I think that's the key thing too, with attracting your ideal audience, is you're being authentic about it. Like, you're somebody that I would trust with business, because you're not trying to, like, pretend there's some secret Facebook algorithm tactic that will make you $1 million.
No,
and I
there
think
isn't.
People are catching on and getting burned. If so many people come to me, they're like, well, I got burned. This person promised this LinkedIn hack where I'd make $1 million. And I'm like, there isn't one. Right. You just talk to other human beings. You do what we're talking about, and then you pivot and sell them your stuff. It's very easy, totally. But it's hard for people to get through, because they see so many people online misleading them. So I just thank you for being kind of the voice of reason here. And there are no shortcuts or secrets. So before we finish up, Bruce, where are the best places for people to check you out online to get more of your content and insights?
If you just go to our website, smartpizzamarketing.com is our home base. That's where we have all our podcasts and links to Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever that is. That's our home base. And let me just touch on one other thing that you just said right there, because I think people need to hear that. You're going to see a lot of videos from people who have YouTube experts or Instagram experts and Facebook experts, and they are experts. There are tactics that you can use for each of those channels, but there's no substitute for work. And even if they teach you how to create the best YouTube thumbnail, no one thumbnail is going to get you 1 million views. You need to do 100 or 250 videos with the perfect thumbnail in order to grow those channels. So it's just, yes, there's tactics, but the tactics still need to be put behind the work that you put in.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. I just think what you said earlier, I cringe when I listen to the first couple episodes of my podcast. They're terrible. They're horrible. I sound like a scared little mouse. I'm like,
that's a great thing though, because it means you consistently improved over time.
Jumped in, and the podcast has only grown because I did it consistently. And the success I've had in business, I've had people, I signed on a client yesterday for a 5-figure contract who said, I have followed you from afar for years of content. before they ever came to me and signed on. But you know what, Bruce? It was the easiest sale ever because they had already followed me for years and were sold on everything I'm doing.
Yep.
So it's like, you just don't know who's watching and who's listening. And you can't get discouraged that you put out one video and it got 2 views. Or
here's what you can do. Joe Rogan probably has the #1 podcast in the world and on video, right? 7 or 8 million subscribers, gets multiple millions of views on every video. Here's a homework piece for everybody who's listening. Go search Joe Rogan's first YouTube video.
Oh,
go search it.
Nice.
You're going to look at that video and be like, wow. Yeah. If he could do that and grow to millions of viewers starting there, I'm fine. I can get started.
Well, and I even think in our space, Gary Vaynerchuk, who I follow for a long time, and his early stuff, it's like, yeah. And he'll be the first one to tell you that. Like when he was starting in the early 2000s with Wine Library TV or whatever he called it, it was very like, but he is so consistent every single day. And his stuff has improved and improved and improved. And I think we look at where people are now, but we don't see the whole journey. And that Joe Rogan's a great example. Like, well, he must have just instantly become famous. Like, I remember that guy in Fear Factor eating bugs. Like, he's put in his work. Yeah,
totally. Pick a subject that you enjoy talking about, but you'll enjoy talking or sharing information or teaching about 2 years from now.
Yeah,
that's the secret, because it's going to take you that long before you really start to get enough people to notice you where it's going to be able to build a business out of it.
Yeah. And it's, to Bruce's point, like, it's an enjoyable process if you're doing what you love.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not chasing the platform. You're chasing your passion, and you're building momentum, and you're building a business, and you are getting customers, and it will grow and grow and grow. So great stuff. Bruce Irving, man, you brought it. I was not surprised. I want to go eat pizza though. So we got to wrap up. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.